Welcome back, folks. I wanted to make somewhat of a, I guess, a short encyclopedia type video where you can reference my foot placements. So that way maybe you can screenshot them or just refer to this video when you're practicing your basic flip tricks. But this is kind of the basis for most of my flip tricks here. And I'm not going to go over each and every single flip trick I do. I just wanted to go over the basics. And it's one thing for you to see me doing this stuff on a video, but it's another thing for you to see the overhead view. Now, in a lot of videos I show my foot positioning before I start showing the trick, but I just figured that this, as kind of like a review or a more in-depth explanation as to why I set up this way, would help you when it comes to learning flip tricks. So just wanted to go through all of the basics here when it comes to flip tricks. So for a pop shove it, this is how I usually set up here. You don't have to have the back foot with the toes hanging off because you don't need a lot of force on the shove it. You can actually just have it back here. Some people tend to have it over here. I don't like to do that. I just want to keep it towards the tip of the tail and focus more on the pop. You really do not need a lot of force in there, so you don't need to have the foot way over here to shove it. Front foot, you can have it more up here. You could have it towards the bottom more. It doesn't really matter as much. You could have it smack dab in the center, but for the back foot, not so far off like a tray flip, but maybe just in this pocket here. If you feel more comfortable having it on the tip of the tail, then go ahead. But that's basically the pop shove it, and to just really focus more on the pop as opposed to the shove, because you don't need much force. Kick flip. This is it right here. I like to have the back foot almost halfway off the tail. That's how much I like to have it, to really just power through that pop, get it going. There's no reason to have it over here or over here. I mean, you can put it back here. You can even put it center of the tail. You don't really need to. Some people have it, maybe right along the edge. I like to have it hanging off. I just like to really use my toes to press down the very center of the board and just get a solid center pop. Front foot is generally right here for most shoes. Now remember, if you have brand new shoes, it's going to help to have your foot a little bit further off, if they're really grippy, especially with new grip tape as well. This is the general spot where I keep it. If you have really worn down shoes and an old board, you can afford to put more of your foot on the board. But either way, I like to make sure that I have my foot below the front bolts. There's really no reason to have it down here. You don't really need all of this space, right? You don't need all this space to get a good solid kick flip. Heel flip. This is how I tend to do my heel flips. Now, you'll notice that I don't have it in the center of the tail anymore. What happened there? I have it over here to kind of counteract where my foot's over here, because if all the pressure is over here, or even in the center of the tail, you tend to lean more towards the front end, and you don't really need that. To counteract that, I have my foot over here. So notice how on the kick flip, I have my foot center of the tail, not over here, not like kind of like a tray flip or anything like that, but at least in the center of the tail, right? There's no reason to have it down here. Now on this, I'm kind of doing the opposite, right? I'm kind of keeping more balance by keeping the foot a little bit further back over here. You don't want to lean everything into the heel, right? The toes are going to hang off, but you don't want to lean everything over. So that's why I kind of have it back here. Same thing over here. You don't need all this space. You're not going to ever really need to have that much space. This is more for other specialized tricks that need a little bit more sliding room and everything like that, but you're not going to need that for a heel flip. You want to take a nice wide stance on heel flips or kick flips. Unless you're doing double or triple or whatever, you don't really need all that sliding room. So like to have it over here. You're not going to, do this all the way out. You're gonna bring it diagonal and then back, right? You're gonna bring it diagonal and back. And this being grounded back here is what kind of helps do that. Because if you tend to have it more over here, it's easy for you to flick out and then just everything goes forward, right? You don't want to do that. So what do we do next? Tray flip. What's really important here is that you have the toes hanging off and that you really utilize that to get a nice solid hard scoop, right? Because you're no longer doing a pop shove it, you're doing a 360 shove it. So it's important to make sure that you have the toes hanging off and that you also have pressure on the toes, right? You don't want to do this and have your foot entirely flat. You want to put pressure on the toes to really bring down this end of the board so that it raises up this end and it makes the kick flip easier. So that's why I put my toes not only on the edge hanging off of the board, but I also put pressure on them. And I've spoken about this many times in my tray flip tutorial. And that's really just a key factor. Now, this can change. You know, maybe you're trying to tray flip a 10 stay or something. You can have your feet more spread apart. That's what I tend to do when I tray flip stairs. Smack dab in the center on flat ground, or sometimes even down here. This will just give you more power because all the power is just really centered here. And then you can just really spring out from here. And that's why you'll see certain people with their feet super close together when they do tray flips, and also when they do them into no slides or crooked grinds or whatever tech tricks on ledges that they do. But again, this can kind of shift. It can be up if you're doing it down a stair set, or somewhere in the middle or further down. It's really just kind of personal preference. But remember, toes hanging off and pressure on the toes. Hard flip. This is a tricky one. I'm not really a fan of the hard flip, but I also tend to have the foot hanging off, right? I like to get a nice solid pop on it. You could put your foot over here to get that opposite pressure, just like I spoke about on the tray flip. But the problem with that is that this tends to give you a very vertical hard flip. And that's okay if you're cool with that. I just tend to like to have mine a little bit more horizontal. Not super vertical like an illusion flip. I just tend to like my regular hard flips to go normally. So you'll pop. You want to give yourself good sliding room on this one. You don't want to have it too far up the front because when you flick, you're not only going to do a kick flip, of course, you're going to hook it around, right? You're going to like give it that nice hooking motion. And with that, the board not only does the kick flip, but it starts doing the, the front side shove motion. Let's see. Nollie flips. This is how I tend to have them. Some people have their feet more off the front, up here, maybe even sometimes hanging off. I do not like doing that at all. And the reason for that is just because since I'm not as familiar with, I wouldn't say as familiar, but since this tends to be my non-dominant, this is my non-dominant foot, it's easier to have it closer to the ground, right? You're just, you're gonna have it snug in this pocket and it hits the ground a little faster than it would if you're way up here and you have to press way harder. So having this in this pocket keeps it nice and close to the ground. That's why I like doing that for nollie tricks. And this is typically how I set up for the switch flip as well. Pretty much the same thing for the nollie heel, except just the heel position, right? Same thing, I just like having it nice and comfortable in that pocket. This is very similar to how I would for the regular heel flip, right? The regular heel flip is right here. You can do that, or you can just have it off the end. For regular tricks, I tend to have it off the end because I'm more comfortable with that. But these are just my preferences. It would be interesting for you to, I guess, try these to the exact T on how I'm presenting the foot positioning and just see how it works for you. That's like, I guess, the whole goal of this video. I just want you to see exactly how I'm doing something so that maybe you can try it and see if it works for you as well. So let's see, we've gone over the kick flip, heel flip, nollie heel, hard flip, tray flip. 3 shove, pretty much the same thing as the tray flip. You know, pressure on the toes and everything, you're going to end up whipping it around with you, right? You're going to bring it around, and it's going to guide the board around. Same thing. Varial heel, similar to the heel, except you're going to have it center of the board about. That's how I like to do it. You can also put it up here. You're just going to get more friction off the heel flip if you have it in the center. Same thing when you're doing a laser flip, right? Very similar setup. You're just gonna be focusing on that scoop a lot harder. I'm trying to figure out what else. Front shove. Very similar to, I guess, the heel flip. I like to have it, like to have the toes hanging off so that it comes, when the board comes around, since the toes were already hanging off, when it comes around, it's already right here. It's gonna meet the board pretty quickly, right? You don't wanna have it way over here every time you're doing a front shove. Then you have to, I guess, traverse this gap in the grip tape, which you don't need to do. It's just gonna create more of a conflict than anything, right? So those are just, I guess, basic flip trick setups, and I guess a brief explanation for each on why I do these, why I have these particular setups. I just wanted to go over that from an overhead view so that maybe you can apply this and see how it works for you. I know not everyone's the same, or not everyone wants to set up the way, the exact way that I do for a trick, but maybe it will help you, or you can adopt these setups so that you know, you can refine your flip tricks, or just really at least try them and see how it works out for you when you do these things. Again, you're probably not going to have the same shoes that I do, or the same, your board's probably not the same shape, or the same, you haven't been skating it for the same amount of months or whatever. But it's important to adapt, right? Always change how you're going to set up for things and see what happens, so that you can at least cross it off the list and say, okay, that works or that doesn't work. And that's part of the skateboarding process, right? Adaptation, just changing how you do things. So comment below, ask me your questions. Let me know if this was a informative video for you, or if you're gonna try out some of these foot setups. I just wanted to go over those basics. But thanks for tuning in as always, guys, and I will see you next time.